It may be funny to them. It's not funny to anybody here who's got to go through, a humanities program. Now, many of the former slave states of the Soviet Empire are today free nations with vastly higher living standards. I mentioned three of them just before: Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic. These were the countries that moved most rapidly to the protection of individual rights, protecting individuals' freedom of speech, of intellectual expression, freedom of the press, freedom of voting, freedom of religion. In economics, these were the former Soviet states that moved most rapidly towards capitalism, that instituted privatization, deregulation, free trade, and above all, protection of private property rights. Now, these were countries that had been terribly poor under communism. Poland, for example, had to import massive amounts of food from the United States and Canada to feed its population. But by the 1990s, their real wages had risen dramatically, and you see the difference. I mean, I have friends from Eastern and Central Europe who grew up under the communists, and they go back now, and they see where the stores, the shelves were formerly bare, and today, of course, the shelves are filled with consumer goods. Their per capita living standards and real wages are vastly higher than they had been under communists. Now, several dictators have been forced by the imminent collapse of their systems into permitting some elements of freedom. Deng Xiaoping, as cited, introduced various free market reforms into China's oppressive system. And the taste of economic freedom, well, even limited, helped incite student uprisings in 1989 that, of course, in which hundreds of thousands of people demonstrated in Tiananmen Square in favor of increased freedom. The massacre in Tiananmen Square in June of '89 squashed that specific revolt, but the communists will, in time, discover the contradiction inherent in any attempt to combine elements of economic freedom with a brutal political dictatorship. Mikhail Gorbachev has already discovered the flaw in that system. Now, Gorbachev, don't forget, was a hardcore communist. And he became a communist under Stalin's regime, and he was understudy of Yuri Andropov, head of the KGB, the most repressive secret police apparatus of history. Nevertheless, at some point in his, can communists be said to have careers? At some point in his career as a communist, Gorbachev simply became sickened by the endless bloodshed. And he started to move, liberalize the regime, started to move it towards greater elements of freedom, some elements of freedom in the 1980s. Now, as people throughout Eastern Europe, sensed which way the wind was blowing, strong towards the west, they realized that freedom could be had. And for example, when the East Germans, 1989, the East Germans rose up against the brutal rule of Erich Honecker, the East German dictator. Honecker appealed to the Soviets for aid, for Soviet tanks, which had squashed revolts previously in history in Poland, infamously in Hungary in 1956. And infamously, almost as infamously, in Czechoslovakia in 1968. And Gorbachev told Honecker, no Soviet military incursion this time, no Soviet tanks, you're on your own. And Honecker realized the game was up, and he stepped down. And this happened all across Eastern Europe, with the only exception of Ceausescu in Romania, who fought it out with the people to the bitter end, and literally got pulled apart bone by bone. By the way, there was a really good movie on this. No, I mean, Ceausescu and the secret police got what they deserved. I mean, they were brutal mass murderers in Romania. Yeah, I know, I agree. But there was a German film a couple of years ago, Other People's Lives or the Lives of Other People. Did anybody see that?
Excellent.
Yeah, it was an excellent movie on showing how the secret for the Stasi, the East German secret police, was brutally oppressive to all forms of freedom. In in East Germany. And there's a great scene in the movie. There's this junior secret police officer, Nastasi. He's telling a joke, you know, about East Germany. And unfortunately, it was overheard by a senior secret police officer. But the dictator, Erich Honecker, is having this dialogue with the son, you know, and in the morning, Honecker looks out his window and he says to the sun is rising, and Honecker says, "Good morning, comrade son, how are you today?" And the son responds, "Good morning, comrade Honecker, how are you?" You know, and at noon, the sun's overhead and Honecker looks out the window and he says, "Good afternoon, comrade son, how are you today?" And the son responds, "Good afternoon, comrade Honecker, how are you?" And in the evening, as the sun is setting, you know, Honecker looks out the window and he says, "Good evening, comrade son, how are you?" Silence. And so Honecker says again, "Well, good evening, comrade son, how are you?" And the son responds, "Screw you, Honecker, I'm in the West now." That evidently was a joke that circulated in East Germany, you know, under the reign of Honecker. Now, in South America, the pattern of dictators forced reluctantly towards some elements of freedom continued. In Chile, in 1973, General Augusto Pinochet overthrew the communist regime of Salvador Allende in a bloody coup and established a military dictatorship that lasted for 16 years. Pinochet's rule was brutally suppressive, akin to military states the world over, except for one remarkable fact. Instead of gripping the economy in a tight-fisted command system, Pinochet loosened the reins of the economic life of the individual and moved the country in the direction of a free market. It was an extraordinary sequence of events. He was a bloody-handed dictator studying the theories of economic freedom with a series of University of Chicago professors that included Nobel laureate Milton Friedman. Astonishingly, Pinochet followed through by applying his lessons in practice. His regime swept aside the disastrous communist policies of Allende's rule. Allende, of course, as a good communist, had nationalized the industry, he nationalized the farms, he hyperinflated the money supply. Pinochet put an end to this, restored some element of private property, and introduced elements of capitalism. Privatized the state-owned companies, deregulated the financial sector, ended the hyperinflation, and removed trade barriers. After several painful years of readjustment, economic progress in Chile became a reality. In 1980, the World Bank reported, quote, "Under extraordinarily unfavorable circumstances, the Chilean authorities have engineered an economic turnaround without precedent in the history of Chile," unquote. Pinochet found, however, like Deng and like Gorbachev, that economic freedom has political consequences. As the 1980s advanced, economic freedom led to ever-increasing demands for political freedom. And fear of Pinochet's dreaded secret police, the DINA, did not deter Chileans from following the logic of a free economy and pressing for a return to full voting rights. In 1989, the dictator yielded, agreeing to open elections in which he was finally voted out of office. Today, sorry, my stomach's just bothering. Give me a second. I know not to eat at that place ever again. Don't worry, we're almost done. We're going to get through this. Sometimes you just got to man up, right? Breathe. My ex-wife would tell me, breathe. I enjoy breathing, actually. Now, as a consequence, Chile today's per capita income is $4,800, significantly higher than the repressed neighbors as Paraguay and Ecuador, and it is rising.